My name is Lena Brooks. I'm 26, and last month HR put my entire career on trial over a 2-second moment in an elevator. I was sitting in a glass conference room with a cold paper cup of coffee in front of me while our HR partner Caroline folded her hands and said, "We need to talk about your relationship with your manager, Noah." Outside the glass, my team pretended not to stare. Inside, there was a printed complaint with my name on it, words like inappropriate and favoritism underlined in yellow. None of them were true. The worst part? Someone in that office knew exactly how to make them sound real. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever had a toxic coworker, a jealous teammate, or been blamed for something you didn't do at work. You'd be surprised how many stories start with one small misunderstanding and end with HR calling you into a room alone. If any of this feels familiar already, stay with me. I didn't grow up dreaming about data dashboards or quarterly reviews. I grew up in a small town in Ohio where everyone knew everyone, where gossip traveled faster than weather changes, and where my mother once lost her job at a local dental clinic because 2 women decided she must have been getting special treatment. I was 10 when I heard them say it, standing in line at the grocery store while my mother pretended not to hear. That was the first time I learned a truth no one teaches you in school. People don't need facts to ruin you. They just need a story that sounds close enough to the truth. By the time I turned 26, I thought I had outrun all that small-town toxicity. I moved to Chicago with 1 suitcase, 1 second-hand laptop, and a job offer from Helix Dynamics, a mid-sized SaaS company with bright offices, loud Slack channels, and the promise of a fresh start. I told myself this place would be different. Bigger cities, bigger companies. Surely they had bigger things to worry about than petty rumors. On my first day, I remember how cold the office felt. Not emotionally, literally. The AC blasted like they were refrigerating produce. Glass walls everywhere, rows of dual monitors, employees with noise-canceling headphones bobbing their heads to playlists I'd never heard of. HR handed me a badge with my nervous smile printed on it and walked me to the Data and Insights corner. That's where I saw him for the first time. Noah Reyes, my team lead. He wasn't intimidating in a classical sense. He didn't bark orders or fill the room with presence. He looked tired, smart, focused, like someone who'd been carrying a team on his back for too long and still showed up early to do it again. "Lena, right?" he said, standing to shake my hand. "Welcome aboard." His handshake was firm but quick, almost apologetic, as if he didn't want to give anyone the wrong idea. Funny, considering how all of this would turn out. He walked me through the team workflows, the client accounts, the dashboards they were rebuilding from scratch. No inappropriate comments, no strange vibes, just a man trying to get 1,000,000 tasks done at once while onboarding a new hire. I liked that. I liked clarity, work that was just work. But work is never just work when other people are watching. For the first few weeks, things were normal enough. I took the train every morning, clutching my iced latte, my stomach fluttering with that mix of fear and ambition only people early in their career really know. I sat at my desk, answered Slack messages, fixed broken queries, learned how to navigate a system that felt too big and too fast for me. But no one noticed when I did something right. I noticed when I caught an inconsistency in a client's data feed. I noticed when I rewrote a dashboard that it loaded twice as fast. "You think differently than most analysts," he told me once during a one-on-one. I didn't know how to take that. I still don't. The first real connection happened on a Thursday night. California clients meant late calls, and Noah and I were the only 2 in the office at 8:47 p.m., staring at a stubborn report that refused to format correctly. The office at night was a different world, dim, quiet, with the city lights reflecting against the glass walls. The kind of space where people accidentally share too much. He ordered takeout for both of us without asking what I wanted. It annoyed me for a split second, until he got my exact order right. "Lucky guess," he said, shrugging. But something about his tone made me wonder if he'd been paying closer attention than I thought. We talked while waiting for the client to join the call. About cities, about pressure, about feeling like everyone expects something from you that you're not sure you can deliver.
"Daniel's breathing down my neck this quarter," he admitted.
"Is that why you're still here at 9 p.m.?" I teased. "Partially," he said. "The rest? I don't know. Maybe I work better when it's quiet." He looked at me for a moment too long. Not inappropriate, just human. I went home that night feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. Heavier because emotional safety, when it comes from a person with authority over your paycheck, is never without consequence. But I ignored that thought. I told myself it didn't matter. A week later, I did my first major slide deck for a client. Noah glanced at the draft, offered 2 minor suggestions, and then, before I could panic, put my name at the top of the presentation. "You earned it," he said, and he meant it. That small gesture became a spark in the office. I didn't know it yet, but a few desks away, Madison Blake was watching. She had been at the company longer than anyone else on our team. She thought the team lead role should have been hers, and she didn't like the way Noah's sentences softened when he talked to me. The first comment she made was quiet enough. "Wow, presenting already? Impressive." But her eyes weren't smiling. Eli, on the other hand, the data engineer who sat diagonally from me, gave me a genuinely happy thumbs up. He had a quiet crush on me, though I didn't realize it then. He helped me fix queries, carried my extra monitor from IT, made soft little jokes under his breath that made the worst days feel tolerable. He wasn't the problem. Not yet. The real storm built slowly, like humidity before a Midwestern thunderstorm. People notice patterns. People create patterns where there aren't any. Noah called on me in meetings more often. Not romantically, just because I did good work. He praised my insights in front of Director Daniel, which didn't happen often. He CC'd me on emails that mattered. None of that was inappropriate, but in an office full of ambition and insecurity, it was enough. I didn't see the danger until the night everything started to fall into place. Another late work session, this time because a client in New York wanted changes before morning. The tension of deadlines and exhaustion wrapped around the room like static. At some point, Noah stood beside me to review a query. Too close. Not touching, but close enough that I felt the warmth of him at my side. I stepped back. He stepped back too, almost immediately. It could have been nothing. It should have been nothing. But I went home that night with an old, familiar worry settling in my chest. Back in Ohio, my mother once said, "People don't ruin you for what you do. They ruin you for what they think you've done." I didn't know it then, but those words were about to become prophecies, because the following Monday morning the elevator shook, and my entire life shifted with it. The morning of the elevator incident didn't feel special. It didn't feel dangerous. It felt like every other Monday. Too early, too cold, too rushed. I'd spilled a bit of iced latte on my sleeve during the subway ride, and the humidity had turned my hair into something between a halo and a warning sign. All I wanted was to get upstairs, drop my bag, and breathe before the 9:15 stand-up. Noah happened to walk into the lobby at the same time. Not unusual. We often arrived within the same 30-minute window. What was unusual was the brief smile he gave me. Not the polite work one, the tired, real one, the kind someone gives when they're relieved to see you. "Rough morning?" he asked, tapping his badge. "Is it that obvious?" I said, showing the coffee stain. He shook his head but didn't hide the smirk tugging at his mouth. "You're fine. Come on." We stepped into the elevator with a crowd of half-asleep employees holding travel mugs and backpacks. By the 6th floor, most of them had stepped out. Only a few remained. By the 8th floor, it was just the 2 of us. I shifted my weight to respond to a Slack message vibrating in my pocket. The elevator lurched, hard. My phone flew from my grip, and my heel slid on the metal flooring. Before my brain even registered the movement, I felt a hand wrap around my waist, steadying me. Noah. His reflex was quicker than my balance. I fell forward into him. His other hand caught my forearm. For a second, maybe 2, we were pressed close enough that I could smell the faint cologne he always wore, close enough to feel his chest rise sharply as he caught his breath. Then the elevator jolted again, this time stopping at the 9th floor. The doors slid open, and Travis Miller walked in. He froze, stared at us. His eyes widened just enough to say everything he did not actually say. Noah dropped his hands instantly. I stepped back so fast I nearly hit the railing. The air between us felt electric and guilty, even though nothing had happened. Travis cleared his throat. "Oh, morning." The next 30 seconds, doors closing, elevator rising, felt longer than my entire move from Ohio. He didn't comment. Not then. He didn't have to. His face had already captured the story he would tell. By the time we reached the 12th floor, my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Noah didn't look at me when he stepped out. I didn't look at him either. We walked in opposite directions like strangers who'd shared a secret they never agreed to keep. I told myself it would die quickly. People saw weird things in elevators all the time. No one should care. But offices are ecosystems, and ecosystems feed on imbalance. The first glimpse of trouble came around 11:45 a.m. when I walked into the pantry to heat up leftover pasta. 3 people, 2 analysts and 1 account manager, immediately went silent. Not the normal pause, the too fast, too loud silence of people caught talking. Then one of them smiled at me with way too much sweetness. "How's your morning, Lena?" Something in her tone made my stomach drop. Minutes later, I heard Travis's voice drifting from behind a half-closed door. I swear, dude, they were practically on top of each other, like if that elevator had moved 1 more inch. Laughter followed. Someone else said, "Well, that explains a lot." Heat crawled up my neck. My chest tightened. I wanted to storm in and tell them the truth. But what truth? That my manager had caught me when I tripped? That his hand on my waist had been a reflex, not an invitation? Truth never stands a chance against a story people prefer. By 2 p.m., I counted 3 different whispers the moment I walked past Teams. "Elevator girl." His favorite. Of course she got the client deck. Each comment was a small bruise I couldn't locate but felt everywhere. Then came the Slack screenshot. It appeared first in a private side chat I wasn't supposed to see. Someone accidentally sent it to the wrong channel before deleting it, but I'd caught it. A screenshot of a DM from Noah to me months ago. "You did great today. Thank you for staying late." My reply beneath it, "I owe you coffee." The image was zoomed, cropped to look more intimate, and stripped of context. Madison's comment followed later in the day, loud enough for others to hear. "Late-night DMs from the boss? Some people really know how to work the system." People laughed. Noah walked in and stopped mid-sentence when he heard it. Madison's smile didn't break. I started avoiding him. He started avoiding me, but avoidance only made the rumor feel truer. Then came the sabotage that snapped everything in place. We submitted a major data set for a high-stakes client, one that could influence budget decisions next quarter. I triple-checked every query. Noah reviewed it too, but when the results went out, several fields were missing. Not blank, deleted. Director Daniel emailed the entire team. "Critical omissions in the data. This is unacceptable. Lena, please explain." Explain what? How does data disappear from a shared file unless someone removes it? That night, Eli found me at my desk, pale, shaking. "I shouldn't say this," he whispered, "but earlier today I saw Madison at your computer. I thought she was helping you." My heart plummeted. It clicked. Madison didn't want me gone. She wanted Noah discredited. And I took the cleanest route. Everything escalated from there. People stopped inviting me to lunch. Someone muttered, "Sleeping your way up," while walking by. And one night, when I finally agreed to join a happy hour to seem normal, I saw Noah at the bar, Madison leaning in too close, her hand brushing his arm in deliberate slow motion. He didn't pull away immediately. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. But the true breaking point didn't come from them. It came from me. The next morning, I overheard 2 coworkers by the snack shelf whispering, "If I were her, I'd flirt with the boss too. Why work harder?" My vision blurred. My hands shook. Something inside me cracked. the part of me that always said, "It's fine," even when it wasn't. I turned, voice steady but cold. "You don't know a thing about me." That moment was the first time I stopped being the good girl. It was also the moment HR opened a formal investigation. Because 10 minutes later, a calendar invite appeared in my inbox. Confidential. Meeting with HR. Caroline Reed. And that was the day my mother's old fear finally became mine. I used to believe that the worst part of a rumor was the whisper, the quick glance, the moment someone's eyes flick over you and then away, carrying something unspoken. But I was wrong. The worst part is how fast it stops being a whisper and becomes a narrative, one you can't control, can't outrun, and can't correct without making yourself look even guiltier. The morning after I received the HR meeting invite, the office felt colder than usual. Maybe it was the AC. Maybe it was the way people's voices lowered when I walked by, or how conversations that once included me now shifted just slightly, like water moving around a rock. I tried to focus on work, head down, eyes on the monitor, hands steady on the keyboard even though they weren't. Slack was unusually active that morning, a subtle sign of office unrest. Messages popped up inside channels I wasn't part of. People sent rapid-fire responses, then went silent when I approached. At 10:17 a.m., something happened that made my stomach twist. A file appeared in a shared Slack channel by accident, then vanished a second later. But not before I saw it. A cropped image, a screenshot, a familiar blue message bubble from Noah to me. "You did great today. Thank you for staying late." I stared at the screen like it had betrayed me personally. It wasn't the message itself. God, that message had been nothing more than a manager thanking his exhausted direct report for overtime. What terrified me was the way it had been clipped, framed to fit a narrative I never agreed to be part of. I felt my face burn, my chest tightened. Someone was gathering ammunition. When I looked up, Travis was standing by the water cooler. He froze when our eyes met, then gave a small, guilt-ridden wince before turning away. He wasn't malicious, just careless. Carelessness can still ruin you. By noon, whispers had become conversations. Conversations had become jokes. Jokes had become pointed questions. In the pantry, someone asked, "So, Lena, who bought the coffee last night? You or Noah?" I didn't answer. Another person muttered, "Guess performance reviews get easier when you're management's favorite." Laughter filled the room, thin and sharp as broken glass. I walked out before my voice betrayed me. Lunch that day was a salad eaten alone at my desk, fork tapping against plastic, emails piling up, the office behind me breathing a rhythm that didn't include me anymore. Around 1 p.m., Eli appeared at my desk. He hesitated like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to stand there. "Hey," he said softly, "you okay?" No, absolutely not, but I couldn't say that. "Just tired," I said. He nodded slowly, then lowered his voice. "HR asked to meet with me about you and Noah." My throat tightened. "What did you say?" I tried to stay neutral. I really did. He swallowed hard. "But they asked if it ever looked like you got special treatment, and I said, sometimes it feels that way." It wasn't betrayal. Not exactly. But it cracked something inside me anyway. Because Eli was honest, and honesty in the wrong context is a weapon. At 3 p.m., everything escalated. Daniel, the director above Noah, sent a message to the team Slack channel tagging everyone, including leadership. "Critical issues with data integrity in the Q3 client report. This must be addressed immediately. Lena, please explain why fields were missing from your final submission." My heart dropped. Not because of the mistake, I knew I hadn't made it, but because of the implication. A public accusation in front of the entire team. Before I could respond, Madison chimed in with a polished, poisonous reply. "We should all review our pipelines carefully. Inconsistencies like this could be due to oversight or distraction." Distraction. She didn't even bother to hide it. A minute later, Noah stepped into the conversation, his message short and controlled. I reviewed Lena's file before client delivery. No fields were missing at that time. We need to investigate version history. It was the first time he'd publicly defended me since the rumor began. But instead of helping, it made everything worse. Because now there was a new storyline. The boss protecting his favorite. When I looked up from my screen, people were watching me. Not discreetly, not kindly. They studied me like a problem to be solved. Then the worst moment of that day arrived. I overheard Madison talking to another analyst near the printer. Her voice was soft but carried easily in the open office. It's obvious, isn't it? Noah's been covering for her for months. Her numbers, her deadlines, he's always right there. Maybe now HR will finally look into it. The analyst laughed. I mean, she's lucky. I'd kill for that kind of support. Madison lowered her voice. Support? Please. He only stands up for one person and we all know why. Something inside me snapped. A thin, fragile wire that had held me together for weeks finally broke. I stood up. I don't even remember making the decision. My legs moved before my mind did. I walked straight into the pantry where Madison and two others stood chatting near the counter. They went silent when they saw me. Do you have something you want to say to me? I asked. My voice wasn't shaking this time. It was level, cold, sharp. Madison tilted her head, feigning innocence. Lena, I don't know what you mean. You do, I said. You've been spreading rumors since Monday. You've been twisting everything. I'm done ignoring it. A small crowd gathered. People pretended to refill their water bottles, grab snacks, tie shoes, anything other than admit they were watching. Madison's smile tightened like a rope around her teeth. Wow, she murmured. Someone's sensitive. I stepped closer. And someone's threatened. Her eyes flickered. For the first time, she looked rattled, but she recovered quickly, leaning back against the counter with a practiced sigh. It's not my fault if people notice patterns. You get a lot of attention around here. Some people earn it, some attract it. The implication was unmistakable. Before I could respond, before I could rip every false narrative apart, my inbox pinged. Confidential. Meeting with HR. Caroline Reed. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Mandatory. Everything inside me went still. Madison noticed, and she smiled. Not friendly, not sweet, triumphant. That was the first moment I realized this wasn't gossip. It was a setup, a deliberate, strategic takedown, and I was walking straight into it. I barely slept the night before the HR meeting. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same image. The glass conference room, Caroline's expressionless face, and my name printed on a file I wasn't allowed to read yet. I rehearsed what I'd say, calm, professional, factual, but each version sounded weaker than the one before. At 2 a.m., Harper FaceTimed me after her hospital shift. She took one look at my face and said, "Oh no, who hurt you?" HR, I whispered. She blinked. Already? Girl, you've been there 6 months. I think someone complained about me and Noah. There was a beat of silence, then, is there something I should know? No, I said too quickly. But that doesn't matter, does it? Harper sighed, rubbing her forehead. People in offices get bored. Bored people get vicious. Just tell the truth. But the truth isn't enough when everyone else has already decided on their own version. By the time sunlight crept through my blinds, I was numb. I dressed in the most neutral outfit I owned. Black slacks, white blouse, blazer the color of wet concrete. No jewelry, no lipstick. I didn't want to give anyone an excuse to read into anything. The office felt like a hallway in a funeral home, quiet, heavy, full of eyes that refused to meet mine. Noah wasn't in yet. His desk lamp was off, chair pushed in. I didn't know if that made me feel better or worse. At 8:57 a.m., I stood outside the HR room. Inside, Caroline smiled a professional, soulless smile. "Thanks for joining, Lena. Please have a seat." The door clicked shut behind me, sealing me inside like an airtight box. What followed wasn't an interrogation. It was worse. It was polite. Caroline folded her hands over a notebook. "We've received a report about potential boundary concerns between you and your manager." "Boundary concerns," I repeated. The words tasted metallic. "This isn't an accusation," she said, which was the exact sentence people say when something is absolutely an accusation. She asked about late-night work sessions. She asked about the elevator incident. She asked about why Noah selected me for certain client presentations. Every question was coated in honey, but sharpened underneath. I answered each one carefully. "We worked late because of time zones." The elevator jolted. "He assigned me because I completed the prep work." But HR doesn't want nuance. HR wants liability control. Then Caroline said, "Some employees have expressed concern about favoritism." My stomach twisted. "Who?" "I can't disclose that." Of course she couldn't. In corporate America, anonymity is both a shield and a weapon. "Did you ever feel Noah behaved inappropriately?" she asked. "No." The word came out too forcefully. Caroline lifted an eyebrow. "Are you certain?" "Yes," I said firmly, even though the question alone felt like a trap. He hadn't done anything inappropriate, but the rumor had twisted even my memories into question marks. She closed the folder. "We'll also be speaking with Noah this afternoon. For now, please refrain from discussing this with coworkers." Translation: suffer silently. When I stepped out of the HR room, the office felt like it was holding its breath. People act busy the way children act asleep when a parent sneaks into the room. Too still, too intentional. Travis avoided eye contact. Madison didn't. She watched me openly from her desk, fingers steepled, a soft smile playing on her lips. I walked to my seat feeling like I was made of glass, and everyone was checking for cracks. At 2 p.m., Noah finally returned from his HR session. He moved like someone carrying invisible weights, stiff shoulders, a jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. He didn't sit down immediately. Instead, he walked toward me, stopping beside my desk without looking directly at me. "We need to talk later," he muttered. My pulse spiked. "Am I in trouble?" He hesitated. "No, but things are complicated." Then he walked away before I could ask anything else. The rest of the day blurred together. No one spoke to me unless absolutely necessary. My Slack is filled with @mentions, but no casual messages. At one point, Madison loudly chimed in on a team Slack thread. "Let's make sure tasks are assigned objectively this sprint." She added a winking emoji. A winking emoji. People laughed. Someone reacted with a fire emoji. If humiliation had a language, it would be Slack emojis. At 5:22 p.m., I saw something that nearly brought me to tears. Aiden, the intern, hovered nervously near my desk. "Can I talk to you?" he whispered. I nodded. He glanced around, then leaned in. "I heard something about you, and Noah, and Madison." My heart slammed against my ribs. "What did you hear?" She was talking to someone outside the conference rooms. She said, "Once HR looks into you two, no one will care about her dashboard mistake." I froze. Dashboard mistake. The data sabotage. Of course, Madison hadn't just been stirring drama, she was diverting suspicion. "Did you tell HR?" I asked. He shook his head violently. I didn't know if I should. She's a senior. I'm just an intern." "I know." He swallowed. "But I recorded part of it. By accident. My phone was already on." My breath caught. That recording could flip everything. But before I could process it, before I could even thank him, the office lights flickered as the automatic timers dimmed. And that's when I saw Noah standing by the door, watching me. Not with avoidance, not with fear, with something else entirely, something like determination. He jerked his head subtly toward the hallway, a silent request. I grabbed my bag and followed him out. We walked down the corridor until we reached a quiet corner near the emergency exit. Noah exhaled, heavy. They think, I know what they think, I said. He paused. I didn't defend you the way I should have. HR twisted my words. My chest tightened. What did you say? That I respect your work, that you're one of the strongest analysts on the team, and they asked why I picked you for high-visibility projects.
What did you tell them?
The truth? And what truth is that? He met my eyes for the first time that day. Because you earned it, every single time. A beat of silence hung between us, fragile and electric. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But belief doesn't protect you. Evidence does. Noah, I whispered, someone's setting us up. His expression sharpened. I know. A cold realization passed between us, and for the first time since the elevator, we weren't just managers and analysts. We were two people standing on the same sinking floor. As we walked back into the office, I knew one thing for certain. HR wasn't the climax. It was only the beginning. The day of the quarterly review felt like the entire building had been tilted slightly, as if gravity itself wanted to drag me downward. I walked into the main conference hall with a tight jaw and a heartbeat that wouldn't slow, no matter how many deep breaths I took. Rows of chairs filled the room. Glass walls stood on every side, reflecting the fluorescent lights in unforgiving clarity. Everyone was here. Daniel, the director, HR, Caroline with her notebook open, my entire team, including Madison, who sat 2 seats from the front with her legs crossed and her smile sharpened to a blade, and Noah. He sat at the end of the table, hands clasped, looking like a man trapped between duty and something far more human. I took my seat, feeling every pair of eyes land on me like pressure points. Daniel started the meeting, his tone clipped. We have a lot to cover today. Team performance, data accuracy issues, and workplace concerns that have been brought to HR's attention. That word, concerns, crawled under my skin. The presentation moved quickly at first. KPI charts, client outcomes, the usual corporate choreography. Then the lights dimmed slightly, and Daniel switched to a slide titled, Internal Audit, Preliminary Findings. The room shifted. Bodies stiffened. I felt the change, a silent quake passing through the rows of chairs. As most of you know, Daniel said, we've had discrepancies in recent reports, as well as concerns raised about professionalism and boundaries. My pulse hammered. Professionally. Boundaries. They weren't even pretending this wasn't about me anymore. Caroline cleared her throat. We received an anonymous complaint regarding potential favoritism within the Data and Insights team. We've conducted interviews accordingly. Her gaze swept across the room, landing on me for half a second, long enough to register judgment, not long enough to register empathy. She clicked the remote. A screenshot appeared on the screen, the Slack DM, the one that had been clipped, stripped of context, weaponized. A ripple of whispers broke through the room. My breath caught. My palms went numb. My body wanted to disappear, but my spine held me upright out of sheer stubbornness. Caroline continued. And during interviews, one team member noted that the distribution of tasks felt uneven. Eli's head dropped. My heart twisted. He hadn't meant for this to happen, but intentions don't matter when your words become ammunition. Then Daniel spoke again, turning toward me. Lena, would you like to respond? The entire room fell silent, 50 eyes on me. No safe direction to look. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because the foundation under me wasn't stable anymore. Every explanation felt like an admission. Every denial felt like a lie. Before I could gather a single steady word, Madison leaned forward. Daniel, she said sweetly, I think the bigger concern is the pattern we've all seen. It's been obvious for months. Some of us work incredibly hard for visibility, but not all of us have the same opportunities. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. The room already knew who she meant. Something snapped inside me. A small, exhausted thread finally reached its end. I stood. The scrape of my chair echoed across the conference hall, louder than it should have been. Everyone turned to fully face me now, not as a colleague, but as a spectacle. "If we're going to talk about patterns," I said, my voice steadier than my heartbeat, "then let's talk about the whole story, not just the parts that make good gossip." Madison's expression flickered. I stepped forward, not timid, not apologetic, just done. "The Slack message you're showing?" I said, nodding at the screen. "That was a thank you from my manager after I stayed late because half the team left early. Ask to see the full thread. Ask to see the timestamps." Caroline shifted uncomfortably. "And if we're talking about workload distribution," I continued, "then maybe we should pull the project logs. They'll show exactly who was doing the heavy lifting for months and who was missing deadlines." Madison's jaw tightened, but I wasn't finished. "And while we're at it," I said, "maybe IT should check file version history for the Q3 dataset. Someone deleted fields from my report right before submission. It wasn't me." The room erupted in murmurs. Madison's confidence faltered, finally. I locked eyes with her. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, a voice cut through the chaos. "No, she doesn't," Noah said. The room went dead quiet. He stood slowly, pushing back his chair, eyes burning, not with anger, but with conviction. "I reviewed Lena's work every step of the way," he said. "She didn't get anything she didn't earn. And she's been the one holding this team together through mistakes she didn't cause." People stared. No one breathed. "And if anyone in this room wants to question integrity," Noah added, "then let's question all of it, not just hers." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Are you making an allegation?" "I'm saying," Noah replied, "that you should expand the investigation." His voice was calm, but the challenge was unmistakable. At that moment, the story changed, the power shifted, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the ground steady beneath me. Not safe, not resolved, but it is no longer collapsing. I exhaled slowly, because this wasn't the end. It wasn't even a victory, but it was the moment I stopped being the girl people whispered about and became the woman they'd have to answer to. The meeting didn't end with a verdict. Corporations never move that quickly. Instead, Daniel dismissed everyone with a tight smile and a vague promise. "We'll continue our review and follow up individually." Which, in HR language, meant the storm wasn't over. It was shifting direction. People filtered out of the conference room in uneasy clusters. Some avoided looking at me. Others stared too long, as if recalibrating their assumptions. Madison walked past with a stiff, brittle elegance, her version of dignity when cornered, but the tremor in her jaw told me she knew something had slipped out of her control. Noah lingered near the glass wall, pretending to check his phone. When I approached, he didn't speak. He just exhaled once, slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "Thank you," I said quietly. He looked up. "We're not finished. They're going to dig deeper now." "I know." "And you're ready for that?" I thought about the recording Aiden had captured, about the version history Noah had quietly exported, about the Slack logs I'd saved the night Madison joked about distractions. For the first time, I realized something important. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't cornered. I wasn't alone. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." He nodded once, the ghost of a smile forming, something tired but resolute. "Then let them dig." When I returned to my desk, a dozen Slack messages blinked at me, most of them harmless, some of them probing. But one email stood out, a private note from Caroline. "Lena, per your comments today, please submit any materials relevant to the investigation. We want to ensure we're reviewing the full context. See." The full context. Finally. I opened my folder, one I'd been building quietly since the first rumor. Screenshots, timestamps, the intern's recording. Version logs showing who edited what and when. Evidence, not of my guilt, but of someone else's intention. My pulse steadied as I attached the files. They wanted context? I would give them the entire story. And as I hit send, a strange calm washed over me. Cold, sharp, focused. The kind of calm that comes not from fear, but from clarity. They thought the meeting was the climax. They thought the investigation was the threat. But they didn't understand. The real reckoning hadn't started yet. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do, or watched office politics twist the truth into a weapon, hit like and subscribe. Stories like this don't end in one meeting. They unfold in whispers, in emails, in the quiet moments when people think no one is paying attention. Share this with someone dealing with a toxic workplace, and tell me in the comments what part hit closest to home. I read everything, and trust me, what happens next in my office is something no one here is prepared for.